On Venezuela, the regime there is already, they've set up this election commission, which they've staffed with their own people. They've banned the leading opposition candidate, Maria Corina Machado, from running. This is certainly not a free and fair election, yet somehow they and others in the region are under the perception that some sanctions relief may be on the way if they're able to conduct what is not a free and fair election, but at least can cosmetically cover for it. They are under that impression. Some, including in the regime, are under that impression from what they're telling others in the region. So I really think it's important to know what's been communicated to the Maduro regime about what these expectations are and so forth. The second topic related to this one, and the chairman mentioned it about the Venezuelan migration, I believe over the break while we were gone, I don't know if it was last week or just in the month of August, there was a record number of both Venezuelan and Ecuadorian migrants who were encountered in the Darien Gap between Colombia and Panama. So the calculation is in about 5 to 6 weeks or less, some of those folks will begin arriving at our southern border. And I'm really interested to know how that correlates, or how we work with not just the other countries in transit, but ultimately how we work with our own immigration enforcement officials to prepare for that sort of surge if you can see it coming 6 weeks ahead of time, 5 weeks ahead of time. And the addition, there's always been Ecuadorians, but not at large numbers like we're seeing now. Clearly that has a lot to do with a deteriorating security situation. We've seen these Colombian cartel groups and so forth now operating using Ecuadorian territory as transit areas, and it's really added to that. And Mexico, I think about all the benefits of the trade agreement with Mexico, a lot of offshoring, a lot of reshoring going on in terms of small manufacturers and others moving operations from Asia to Mexico. This is great. About 40% of that activity happens in a place called Nuevo Laredo, which also happens to be under the control of the Zeta cartels. And they are using the same mechanisms of trade to embed fentanyl and other things into our country. And so I wonder how that works with our conversations. Look, the government doesn't control that city. It's just, frankly, a real strange situation. On the one hand, we want trade, we want commerce, we want that, but they are using the mechanisms in one particular place that encounters 40% of that trade. It's a huge vulnerability. The chairman mentioned Peru has had some instability. From my reading of it, it is a little bit more stably than, is that a right term? It looks like it's trending in at least in a more stable direction from what it used to be, but obviously still not ideal. But there appears to be potentially an opening now for more cooperation with the existing administration to be able to work on some things with them. I think they're a willing partner on a number of topics, and I'm curious to see what work we've done in that regard. And last, and kind of an overarching theme, and I'll allow you to, when I get back, we can discuss it more in depth, and it really is the one I wanted to focus on as much as anything else today. I just wanted to share with you, and this is my impressions, maybe others get different feedback, but as I meet with leaders and others in the area, there's this perception. This is what I'm told. I'm going to kind of give it to you verbatim. It's better to be America's adversary or irritant than it is to be America's ally. If you're an irritant, or if you're not always falling in line or doing the things that the U.S. hopes you will do, you seem to get a lot more attention. You seem to get meetings. You seem to get efforts to lift sanctions or other measures to sort of entice you to the light and away from the dark side. If, on the other hand, you are some of these countries, the Dominican Republic as an example, that clearly and openly wants to align with the U.S., you get travel advisories, you get commercial sanctions and things of that nature with regards to some of the things that have happened there earlier in the year. A sense that we punish our friends and we reward, or at least try to appease, those who are viewed as irritants or even adversaries. That perception, and I've had leaders frankly tell me it may be better off to be against the United States. By the way, this pre-exists this administration. I mean, these are complaints I've heard under previous administrations at some point in the past. But how do we address that? Because that doesn't mean we have to agree with everything our allies are doing, but we probably live in a time now where we need to be pretty clear about we're going to be good to our friends, and we're going to confront our adversaries and those who clearly are undertaking steps that undermine our national interest and national security. So that's more of an overarching theme, but one I hope we'll touch on.